Hey guys, I'm Nathan from Harrison Consoles, and it is now possible to stem export your Midi tracks in Harrison Mixbus32c version 8. So sometimes when you're working with Midi, you want to export the Midi file itself separate from the Midi instrument. This makes it possible to share those Midi files with another producer or engineer, and they can apply their own Midi instrument in their own DAW to the Midi file that you send them. And maybe you just want to back up your session with all the audio files and Midi files so you can get to them later in the future. So let's look at the session I have here on the screen and show you how to apply these concepts. So as you see, I got a few different Midi clips and some audio tracks. And let's go ahead and take a listen. So this is a pretty fun session, and I have a Midi clip being triggered on the cue page, and that's what you can see here with the cue markers on the timeline. And there's some other fun parts in here that just round out the whole production. So what I'm going to do first is actually export the Midi files themselves without applying the Midi instrument, and that will be backed up to the export folder in my session. So we can go to Session, and then Export, and then stem export, and you can see that the shortcut for that is now Control-Shift-E or Alt-Shift-E on a PC. So in the stem export dialog box, we have two options down here that we can either analyze the exported audio or we can re-import exported audio back into the session. I'm just going to go to Timeline and make sure that my start and end markers are selected for the entire session. And then under Channels, I can go to Selection Actions and just choose the Midi tracks. And I also want to make sure that the Apply Track Bus Processing is unchecked. And from there, I can just press Export. So now I'm in my export window, and you can see that here's all my Midi files. And I can take these and put them into any other session that I want and apply a Midi instrument so I can actually hear what each one sounds like. Now for my second example, I'm going to show you how to re-import these Midi tracks back into your session. So once again, we're going to go to Session, Export, and Stem Export. Now I can check and make sure my time span is still selected, and it is, and go to my channels. Under Actions, I can choose Select Midi Tracks, and go back to File Format, and re-import exported audio. I'm not going to worry about analyzing the exported audio this time, and just press Export. So now if we look here at the bottom, we can see all of our Midi tracks. They all start at the beginning of the session, but each one of these tracks do not have a Midi instrument applied to them. So if I play this first one, for instance, we're not going to hear anything. And now for the last example, we can go to Session, Export, Stem Export, Channels. We're going to choose just the Midi tracks again. But this time we're going to check the box for Apply Track Bus Processing. And we are going to re-import these in so we can see what they look like. And just press Export. So now you see that this is the audio version of what our Midi track sounded like. So I can go through here and play each one. So what's great about having both versions of your Midi tracks is when you give them to someone else to work with, they at least have a rough idea of the sound you were going for, but then they can take the raw Midi tracks and totally change the sounds if they want to. So if this video has been helpful to you, be sure to give it a like, subscribe, and click the bell down below. And once again, I'm Nathan from Harrison Consoles, and I'll see you in the next video.